Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ignited Podcast, Striking Industrial Automation Conversations. We're your hosts. I'm Travis Cox.
And I am Thomas Burke. This episode is called The Evolution of OT Architectures. We are going to discuss today how OT architectures have evolved over the years and what is required for the architecture of tomorrow.
And today we're joined by none other than Kevin McClusky, our Chief Technology Architect here at Inductive Automation. You know, I've had the privilege to work closely with Kevin over the years through running the sales engineering division and creating the infamous Build-a-Thon and much more. So Kevin, thanks for coming on to the show here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You got much more rich background here at Inductive. So let's start there. Let's talk about how you started here and talk about your journey at Inductive Automation.
Sure. So as you mentioned, Chief Technology Architect, I've been with the company for a little, going on 17 years. So joined in 2009, back when we had the legacy products before Ignition even existed. So factory PMI, factory SQL. I actually got hired as an HMI developer. So I was building out screens. I was hired to the integration side of the business, which was Calmetrics at the time, sitting on a bucket upside down, programming systems, programming PLCs, grapes coming into wineries. And it was a wild journey through all of that. And I spent a couple of years there before jumping over to the software side of the company, which was Inductive Automation at the time, right? And it's still Inductive Automation, clearly, but the integration side we no longer have. We shut down Calmetrics and it's just Inductive Automation. So we don't do any integration, as both of you know. We rely on an integrator network for that. And so then I moved through there. We had a design services division that I led up for a little while. You and I joined as co-directors of sales engineering. And then a few years ago, we had a little bit of a reorg inside company leadership. And we're both part of the executive leadership at this point. And that's how I got to where I am. I also wore the hat of VP of sales for about 2.5 years as well. Which about a year and a half ago, I handed over to Chris McLaughlin, which he's doing a fantastic job in that position. So it's been a wild journey.
For sure. We've had a lot of fun times over the year. You know, I do miss the old days of the integration days. You know, it was fun going out there and building those solutions, right? Especially with, of course, Ignition.
Yeah.
It's a great product. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am so jealous just listening to you guys and all the stories you have to tell. And, you know, I remember when we first met back in my long time ago OPC days and the work you're doing. So tell me, though, I mean, you know, I know your background now, but what is your passion that you really have for inductive automation, and where do you want to go from here?
Oh, man. I think the thing that gets me out of bed in the mornings and sometimes keeps me up at night is just how much of a difference all of this is making, that Ignition has made for so many different folks around the world. I think if you walk onto an automotive plant floor, for example, and you take a look at the lines, there's no feeling like getting out there and just looking around the whole place, seeing all the screens, knowing those are all Ignition, and knowing how much of a difference that's made in people's lives. Knowing how much better efficiency, knowing how much of a better customer experience it is for folks who are actually purchasing the cars, knowing how much of a difference it's made for engineers, made for the company, made for the success of modernizing things and moving things forward. I think that's really where the passion lies. And you ask what's next for me. This is what's next for me. I am super excited about where we are right now, where we're going in the future. It's a labor of love for, you know, I think most of us, and it is really, really exciting to be able to be right in the center of the tornado, right at the forefront of technology, and keep pushing the envelope forward.
Oh, I can appreciate that. It's so exciting to work with both of you guys and the work you're doing and our weekly calls and just learning all about everything and taking this thing to the next level.
Yeah. You have your own history, Tom. You have quite you said you're jealous of mine, but I'm a little jealous of yours too.
Well, I did OPC for a long time, and I was at a couple other companies, and I've always been doing a lot of different things. And I had an architecture position several times now. Mm-hmm. But architecting OPC, and I think what I'm most excited about, though, coming to work for Inductive is Inductive's commitment to open standards and specifically OPC. And, I know there's a lot of, it's MQTT and Sparkplug and all the other initiatives, but, it's so important the work that you've been doing and you're championing the standards. When I first met you, that, that was what it's about. That was my passion. It's working with the companies that really want to adopt the technology and bring it forward into real products like we've done with Inductive.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, OPC was the first standard that we really deeply, passionately cared about. It basically was part of putting us on the map and part of our entire decision around the initial version of Ignition. We had the couple of legacy products that I mentioned earlier, Factory PMI, Factory SQL. But when we decided that we needed to be fully cross-platform, we needed to create a platform that was going to be able to evolve and move with technology, that was going to be able to adopt open standards. And there wasn't a lot of technology out there. We built one of the first OPC UA stacks entirely from scratch inside Java. Client server architecture, our own Allen Bradley driver was what we launched with, and Modbus, right? Yeah. We had 2 drivers to start out with. And, OPC is such a foundational part of everything. Everybody using Ignition is using OPC behind the scenes. If you're using one of our drivers, you're using OPC. Obviously we care a lot about the Sparkplug standard as well, and QTT. We care a lot about some of these other ones that have been coming up as well in the last few years, right? So there's the OPAF has created the OPAS spec, and that's something that we've been connected to that group. And when Don Bartusiak first started that, and the COPA 500, that is a reference implementation for that. We're right at the heart of that. And all the SESME type of efforts that have been going on recently, the standards around that, the SM profiles that take advantage of OPC UA Part 5, and we've, you've actually built some of the stuff yourself, but we have importers that are inside the Ignition Exchange. And I think all of these standards are really important. We want to create the best platform out there so folks can self-select into what's going to work best for them. And I think that even as things continue evolving forward here, that's something that we want to continue doing. We want to support the standards that our customer base cares about, and basically provide options for whatever's available.
I've always been impressed because, everyone that I have met lives and breathes really the technology and the standards. And it's not just an academic exercise. It really is a real commitment. The participation and, I want to make sure that everybody knows how committed Inductive Automation is to all these standards, specifically OPC, but, and I'm very excited about the stuff related to MQTT and Sparkplug. And obviously I'm a big fan of the UNS and all this information modeling and our partnership. And I'm excited about being here, Kevin, because it's working with guys like you that makes a real difference.
So let's go back, Kevin. You look at early days, for Ignition, customers just buy one Ignition server, right? And they'd put it at the central, and it was unlimited. They can connect to all the devices that are there. We have all the drivers that leveraging OPC or connecting to a third-party OPC server, bringing that data in, adding history, alarming, being able to get that data to people no matter where they are. It was very simple architecture, right? But that's evolved. That's changed quite a bit. So how important, has architecture, what role has that played in the evolution of Ignition over the years? And I know you've had a lot of connection to that. I mean, I still remember when we went from, one server to then splitting it out, right? To be able to do that. So talk a little bit about how important architecture is. Yeah.
And the gateway network and the whole, there are so many options now, but back going 20 years ago, there weren't, right? You know, back when we launched Ignition, 16 years ago would be Ignition when we launched it, right? There's a limited set of architectures that you could do, and you could stitch things together with certain protocols in certain ways, but most folks were doing smaller systems anyway, but you didn't need much more. I think of architectures today in terms of somebody who's just getting started with Ignition, and you can be the best race car driver in the world, but if you're racing a VW bus, you're not going to win a race, right? Ignition's flexible enough that you can use a single server. You can do you can have not much of a thought about architecture, and you can create a fantastic project. But what are you going to do after you make that project, right? If that's all you need, that's okay. But if what you need is digital transformation inside your overall company, inside your initiatives that you have going, inside the overall picture of what your organization is looking at, even across continents or across different business units or across different portions or even affiliates, you need to have something that's a foundation that will let you build the right solution. And if you set that up at the beginning, it makes a huge difference. So the idea of taking something, building it once, being able to deploy it anywhere in the world with almost zero effort, right? That is powerful. That is, if you set up the architecture right, that is entirely possible today as well. And so I get very excited about people setting up the right architectures with Ignition and having, scale out pieces to it, having the ability to do distributed types of tasks, having some of these surrounding services that are tying in a way that Ignition's able to either be a data conduit up to other systems, or Ignition's able to do some of the compute pieces in the middle. And I think these architectures, for a lot of systems inside our space, that evolution's been kind of similar, where we might have led the way in certain areas. If you take a look at a lot of industrial software these days, it has the idea of how do I scale? How do I scale well? We're still trying to be the ones who are, at the forefront, right? And we're putting new features in all the time, and we're going to continue doing that. But it's been neat to see how the whole industry is propping up a bit and making these types of things possible. And if you, audience, aren't thinking about these things already, right, you should be, because that distributed world, that big size architecture where you can write once and deploy everywhere, that's going to become even more critical to be able to keep up with other companies who have discovered it and are doing it really effectively.
Really, Kevin, your message to our SIs and our end users is think about how you architect your solution to begin with. And
Absolutely.
it's more than just using Ignition, it's the whole system.
Yeah, because if you if you go back, like at the end of the day, Ignition was unlimited, right? We removed barriers. So what would have been, a project where they were only looking at certain kinds of data and achieving certain kinds of goals, now it's like the whole world's kind of unlocked, right? And so architecture became really important. I mean, if we go back, I remember, single server, you having that there, that was great. There's only so much that a server can handle, right? That thing's got to scale. If you want to bring in more data, like, we can go do this project, I can go connect to that device, I can bring that in, that became mission critical. But then really at the very beginning, we saw not only need to kind of distribute that out, have a back end and front end, but we also saw the architectures becoming distributed. So that, what do we call that in the early days? Hub and spoke, right? In terms of how that worked. But that was because we had to solve real problems that were out there. And so can you speak a little bit to like the hub and spoke evolution of Ignition?
Yeah. Hub and spoke you could think of as a old style of scaling out architecture, where basically you would have a bunch of different independent nodes. The spokes could be at different little edge locations. And then you have a hub that's sitting in the middle. And that hub is connecting, doing some data collection. It's acting as the brains here. And each one of the spokes is basically really lightweight, has communication, might have alarming that's being sent through. But each one of these are more or less independent systems that happen to be talking to each other over a variety of protocols. And especially the early days for hub and spoke, we didn't have the gateway network. We didn't have some of or MQTT or some of these other protocols that are going to transfer alarm information in a way that, is fully supported over and is going to be streaming things in the same way. And so that hub and spoke architecture, very simplistic at that point. Fast forward to today, you have the ability to have all of that integrated too. Instead of seeing it as each individual system, see it as one platform of all of these things together. And so you can stitch it together with a variety of different protocols. We have a bunch of guidance, obviously, on our website that gives information about how to do that best. But you can do scaling, you can do horizontal scaling in addition to vertical scaling. So multiple different front end gateways, so you can handle 1,000 simultaneous clients at the same time. By having those together and load balanced, you can have back end gateways that have different apportioned amounts of data that are going to each one of them, that are connecting to other ones that are sitting behind the scenes, centralized management of the pieces inside here. And beyond single sites, you can also go to additional sites, have centralized monitoring of all of these different sites from data that is streaming up as well. And then, of course, today, one of the most important things that folks are experimenting with and trying to find value from, and some folks are finding value, is AI. Yeah. And so being able to take those data streams, contextualize the data, move it in a way that ends up being immediately useful inside these systems that understand plain English, that you can talk to and that you can ask for X and Y and Z. If they can plug into these things, you mentioned UNS earlier, right? If you have a structure that gives the context to the data that you're connecting up to a central system or you're connecting to the distributed network there, then it adds real value for folks.
For sure. Like the scale, like where things are going. Like I remember back when a big system would have been 50,000 tags.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. That's a lot to have to deal.
And now that's nothing.
That's nothing. I mean, we're talking about systems. I think the largest distributed one is around 18 million, if I'm not mistaken.
I think we're at 23 million.
Oh, 23. It's crazy to kind of think about that. But you're right. It's all about the scale, everything working in harmony, being a bigger architecture. But there's so much being deployed. You got to easily manage that, right? You got to be able to add new value to it quickly, and so there's a lot more tools, right, that are happening these days that are very exciting, right? To help do this at scale, because as you need to have more problems, you got to be able to make the job easier for yourself at that level.
Yeah.
So you're doing some here at Inductive, we're doing some big work around that with our DAWG group, our Distributed Architecture Working Group. Yeah. And I know it's right to attack this, right, to figure out how we can go at scale. Yeah. So what are some of the things that we're looking at doing there?
Yeah. Well, the first great example of some of the fantastic work that they've done, and that you and I were lucky enough to be able to show off, was something that we showed earlier this year, which was 3 minutes, I believe.
That's right. Yeah,
I was on stage. I started the stopwatch.
That's right.
Yeah, we had a 3-minute counter and said, let's take a whole application that we built that was around a production facility, lines that were actually doing packaging, conveyance systems, all of that. And say, let's spin up an entire new site where the servers didn't exist anymore before doing this. None of the projects existed. We had templates that basically had been built already, but nothing existed before. And let's see how quickly we can spin this up. We didn't call our engineer friends and say, hey, go create a new server, spin this up. We pressed a button and orchestrated the whole system. And that's part of what I was talking about earlier, right? Is if you have the architecture in the right way, if you set things up for success, being able to deploy and architect this and deploy it at scale is huge. And we've talked to quite a few of our integrators who are doing this, especially in the data center space, but in quite a few advanced technology spaces where they are able to infrastructure as code and orchestrate things and basically reduce the engineering time required for the deployment. You want to spend a little bit more time up front to make sure that everything's solid, but then the deployment is as simple as running through some existing IAC pieces and some other technologies, and Ansible, and there's a whole variety of them. Yeah. I don't need to get too technical here. I love to, but
I mean, that leads into the next question I was going to ask is, how do we ensure that we are delivering the right technology to our system integrators and end users? I mean, there's so many things out there. There's so many different buzzwords, and all these different things. How do you make sure that it all comes together to help customers achieve this magical information, information or digital transformation or whatever we want to call it today.
Yeah, we work really hard to have a lot of inputs that are coming into us as an organization. The DAWG group is one of them. So they went out, they created what they thought was a great architecture based on feedback from customers as well. And we were able to demonstrate that earlier. They have created a number of tests that are against performance that we are doing some really incredible things when it comes to scaling, where we're trying to go bigger than any customer would ever go, and be able to give really good feedback and do additional optimization inside our systems to be able to support folks at that scale. And so that feeds back into our development cycle as well for folks who are in big architectures. What does troubleshooting look like, and how do we improve the tools that are there? We also have feedback that comes from sales engineering. We have feedback that comes from our sales team, which is all feedback from customers funneled through part of our organization. We also have feedback that comes from our tech support team. We have product managers that are over our different product sections inside Ignition. And then that information ends up getting funneled through and prioritized as work. So that process looks a little bit different. We evolve it over time, but most recently we've had some summits where leadership has gotten together to decide what is the highest priority, once again, taking customer feedback into account. And then also, of course, our team has a whole variety of ideas. Our team is full of brilliant engineers, and so they're coming in. We never have a shortage of ideas, and they're coming in, and we're taking those into account as well, right? We want to be responsive to feedback from customers, and especially the things that are going to be the most impactful. But we also want to continue innovating and leading the way and putting in features that nobody's ever seen before. So we weigh all of that. We never have enough hours in the day to do all of it. But we take those, we prioritize those, we figure out what can make it into the next release. And then we set our team toward making those things happen.
Yeah, I know you've had rich history here. Like you and I have been talking to customers and understanding the needs they have, right? Yeah. And largely, to be honest, the architectures that we've built are out of necessity from the problems that customers have run into, right? Where we had to make sure we didn't lose data, right? Get the data to the right place, scale gracefully, and we're taking that next level these days. But architectures are getting more complex in that it's using more and more technology that is from the IT arena. There's newer types of systems that are being integrated with Ignition. And I know that that's something that's very important for you is learning the different technologies and the tools that are out there so that we could decide and work with our development team to figure out, hey, should this be part of the product? And I know you've done that a lot over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd invite anyone who's listening to this, if there's something that you think is important right now that we don't have our finger on the pulse of, send me a message. You'll probably see this on LinkedIn or YouTube. If it's on LinkedIn, just send me a message, or anybody send me a message on LinkedIn. You can find me easily. I'm very interested in making sure that we're taking all of that into account going forward. And that's how we learn as well, right? Most of where we go is a combination of our engineers bringing ideas together and the community bringing ideas together. And I'm only one man. I can only explore so much. The demand signals really matter, right? What the customers really want, what the whole community wants, that really matters to us in terms of where we end up going.
That's why Inductive Automation is such a great product, because we listen to our customers and we're actually trying to drive the technology that solves problems that they really want solved. And we really appreciate you being the funnel and taking care of. We're going to put you out there. We're going to put your contact information out there.
One of the funnels. One of the funnels. We have several. That's great, Tom. And we used to have a mantra. I mean, if we're going back 10 years here, that we don't publish a roadmap because we want to be able to be responsive to everybody. We want to be able to adjust on a dime. Right. At this point, we have a large install base. I just took a look at the company or the countries. We have something like 173 countries that actually have ignition. Basically everywhere other than the embargoed or sanctioned countries, ignition is sitting. So we have a big responsibility to our customers as well. We're not quite as agile as we were 10 years ago, and we also want to be able to provide some sense of what's coming next. So at ICC, shameless plug for ICC, right? Ignition Community Conference in September. Come, you want to be there. But we have
you heard him.
We actually
you better be there.
But we actually talk about what's coming next, the next version of Ignition. We've got the curtain down over a really exciting module that I can't talk about yet. That we are going to pull that back, and we're going to. I'm getting excited just thinking about it, but we're going to be digging in deep there.
I do think that this ICC will be one of the most impactful ICCs of all, right? In terms of, the product, and we get to now where we are with Ignition 8.3, we've talked about this as being the place where we've always dreamed of being, right? That kind of foundation that can unleash innovation from there. Because it has been the basis, I think, for how architectures are working today. I mean, a lot of what you're doing now is taking the full power of what 8.3 provides and be able to get that out there and have customers put in practical use, grow these architectures, see new systems coming that are just getting amazingly big, like in data centers and various areas. And then evolving that, right? Making it better and better for customers.
Yeah, the fully composable, orchestrated type of deployment that I was talking about earlier, that wouldn't have been possible without 8.3. And then every version of Ignition going forward has that as a foundation. That is the foundation of all Ignition going forward. And it's super exciting because things are just going to keep getting better.
So let me ask this question. We look at architecture. There's there's a lot of different pieces, like we mentioned, right? They're growing. But what would you say have been the most significant contributing factors to architectures being able to really scale, to get large, right? Is it a protocol? Is it a technology that Ignition has provided? What do you think has been the most significant and has provided the most significant impact out there?
That's a good question. If I'm talking in the IT world, in general, IT/OT world, I'd probably say Docker. Docker, I think most folks know what it is at this point, or just containerization in general. Broadcom helped with that. So the movement and the adoption. But I think that's been one of the most pivotal technologies because it has basically allowed for things to very quickly be spun up, spun down, be inside boxes, right? They call them containers for a reason. Have them with thick lines around them in terms of where that functionality is. And you can pull one out, you can put another one in. It's something that really is easy to manage for folks who are inside the IT space, and folks inside the OT space have really started to understand them better at this point as well. So a lot of that IT technology comes to OT. I think that's probably the biggest technology that has helped with scalability, like you're talking about with architectural scalability.
I definitely can agree with that. And Tom, you're from the standard world. What about that side?
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. I've been in the standards world for a long time. I prefer to say that I did more than just standards, but what are your thoughts on all the industry standards that are out there now and Inductive Automation's commitment to these standards? Where do you think it's going to go?
I think, so to harken back a little bit to one of my comments earlier, I think that where we are right now is a decent place in terms of supporting the standards that people care the most about. So OPC UA, MQTT, we have a connection to and commitment to folks that are on both the COPA, the OPAF piece of things, and then also the SESME. There's a variety of additional standards there. Obviously, all of the protocols that we support as drivers are standards as well. And we have pretty deep support for those. If we're talking compliance standards, 9001, 27001, 62443, all of those matter a lot to us as well. And I only see us doing more when it comes to standards going forward, not less. So the support that we have right now, some of the support for these standards is complete across the board. Other ones is partial. support. And so some of them define 12 different pieces of the standard. And so we might support 11 of them and we haven't done the 12th. And so we're always reevaluating in terms of what our customers are looking for. Most of it is customer feedback based. But I'd also mention, I know you and I talked about this earlier, what can our customer base do to support standards organizations better? I would say, I think most standards organizations are hungry to have participation. And I would encourage anyone who's watching, reach out to the OPC Foundation. We just talked to them recently. They would love to have more participation, especially in the areas that ignition's used the most. Reach out to the Sparkplug Working Group. That is a fantastic organization as well. I'd say get involved in OPAF if you're connected to process, if you're part of the DCS world and you're looking to move away from DCS into something that is easier to maintain, more standards-based, something that doesn't have that same level of vendor lock-in. If you're interested in industrial standards, from a modeling standpoint, SESME is a great organization to get connected to, and it's good to learn about i3X and some of the other pieces that they have in place to be able to move things forward. But don't hesitate to reach out and get involved in all of these organizations.
So taking that in mind, we will be providing at the end of our podcast here links to a lot of these different links to everything that Kevin has mentioned about getting involved, and getting involved in OPC and Sparkplug are key, as well as SESME and everything else. So thank you for reminding me how important that is to tell our audience about those.
So I know this might be, at the end, we always kind of have to ask the infamous question. Might be a little hard because sometimes you can't talk about a lot of the future. But what are you most excited about as you look to the next couple of years here? Like there's a lot going on, and especially with ignition. But what is Kevin most excited about?
I think, honestly, it's not even the features that we have coming next. It is where companies are going with ignition. That is, I am really excited about some of these really big deployments that are going out there, companies standardizing on ignition across the board globally, the way that they're setting up their projects, the way that things are, the value that these are bringing at a global scale in terms of transforming the way that companies are doing business. That and of course, I can't mention any of these specifically. It's all NDA'd and it's secret sauce from a lot of these companies, but it's super exciting. I would leave the audience with a word of encouragement as well. If you are doing anything large scale with ignition, if you're doing anything that resonates with the things we've talked about today, reach out to us. One, we'd love to hear about it. I'd love to hear about it, right? You can tell I'm a bit passionate about this, and I'd love to get connected. But secondly, we have a team of sales engineers who are happy to provide architectural guidance. I stay very well connected to that group. And if you're considering rolling something out that's global, make sure that you let us know. We're happy to be able to take a look at what you're thinking about doing, make some suggestions here and there in terms of this might be a better option. Maybe you don't need this server over here that you have. Maybe you want to use a scale-out architecture on this side. These are the practical points that you'll get to in terms of numbers of devices based on device type that is reasonable for what you have here. And, individual gateways can do a ton, right? We're talking hundreds of thousands of tags on a single ignition gateway. If you're talking about a 23 million tag system, we certainly want to be involved in the conversation to help make sure that goes well the first time, that you don't have to come in and, make some adjustments to the architecture along the way. And even if you're just starting with the first plant, right, help us to help you to make that architecture solid. So we're here with everybody in the journey along the way, right? That's part of our company culture. That's part of our value that I think we have to the community. And that's part of what I'm passionate about as well. So please keep us in the loop. Love to hear about what you're doing. And if you just want to send us a message and say, we already have it all figured out, this is something that we're already doing. We're experts here, but we wanted to let you know about it, Inductive Automation, that this is what we're doing. We'd love to hear that too.
Kevin, you are just amazing. I got to tell you that. It's just wonderful. I really thank you for all the things that you've done for Inductive Automation and the opportunity to, work with you and Travis and taking this thing to the next level. Your commitment to our system integrators and end users is outstanding. Helping people architect solutions more than just using Edition. And we want to hear about it. And he's right. We want to hear about it. We're going to connect you up on, with LinkedIn. Get in touch with Kevin. If you have any questions, we're going to be doing some future webinars and podcasts again. And Kevin, this is the first of another one. You're going to be doing another one with you again. Trust me.
I wouldn't mind.
You're going to be on my agenda. So,
yeah, thanks, Kevin, very much for coming on. We really appreciate it and the insights you share there. I know we're just getting started, right? Which is the fun part. So,
well, thank you so much for having me. This is a joy, right? It's always, and I love what you're doing here with United and the podcast and bringing so many industry voices. It's not just Inductive Automation, right?
Yeah.
We have so many members from the community that are joining in part of it and big voices. And it's really exciting to be watching what you're doing and bringing it to the next level.
As you said, we just want to get all the cool stories out there that are happening right now because there's just a lot of fun. So, as always, stay connected to the Ignited podcast, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks you all so much, and we're going to see you next time.